Hello guys, I would like to talk now about evolution because people, as I see, they're doing a debate and they're using their religion to prove that God exists, while others try to use science to prove that God do not exist. As I see, the main problem in these debates are the word evolution, because not everyone understands the same thing under the word evolution. For example, people think that in evolution there is competition. There is no competition in evolution. If there would be competition, that would mean that in evolution there is a goal. And if there is a goal, that means that evolution is not a random process, it's a directed process. In my opinion, evolution is a random process caused by natural selection. I know nowadays that evolutionists do not like to use the word random. They like to use the word spontaneous. If you look what the word spontaneous means, then you're going to realize that if you use the word spontaneous instead of random, this is going to cause more complication in the evolution theory. To avoid misunderstandings, I'm not going to use the word random or spontaneous. I like to use the term natural selection. Natural selection is the base of evolution. Now let's see, why do people nowadays still believe that there must be a God? The reason is very simple: the scientifically unexplainable events in nature. I have noticed that many atheists, the scientifically unexplainable events, they degrade to the level of a machine. I tell you an example. In one of my debates, I told to a guy that I do not know what can cause the appearance of strategy in nature. If there is strategy, then there must be an intellectual being behind it. In documentary films, you can see that many animals with low-level intellectuality, or even funguses and plants, using strategies. In my debate, I told an example. I told to the person that the Venus flytrap can distinguish living from the dead and small from big. The guy said that this is not true, because the Venus flytrap works as a machine, because it has no brain. There are sensors in the Venus flytrap, and if the sensor is activated, the Venus flytrap simply closes. That's it. Just like a machine. Then I told to the guy that it is true that if you activate the sensor, then the Venus flytrap start to close, but not completely. So the situation is more complicated than he thought. If the sensors are activated only 1 or 2 times, then the Venus flytrap not gonna close completely. It's gonna remain a little bit open, and later, if nobody touches anymore the sensors, it's gonna be open again. If the sensors gonna be activated more time, that's the time when the Venus flytrap gonna close completely and gonna start to process the enzyme to digest the insect. Exactly at the 5th time of the activation of the sensor, the Venus flytrap gonna start to produce the enzyme. So this is a strategy which requires intellectuality. The most complex strategy what I have ever seen in nature is the strategy of the Dicrocoelium dendriticum. Sorry, I cannot pronounce it very well because I do not speak Latin. This parasite living in the liver of its host, and after mating, the eggs are excreted in the feces. Let's see the strategy of this parasite. The first intermediate host, the terrestrial snail, consumes the feces and became infected by the larva parasite. The larvae, drilling through the wall of the gut and settle in its digestive tract, where they develop into a juvenile stage. the snail attempts to defend itself by walling the parasites off in cysts, which it then excretes and leaves behind in the grass or substrate. The second intermediate host, an ant, uses the trail of snail slime as a source of moisture. The ant then swallows a cyst loaded with hundreds of juvenile lancet flukes. The parasites enter the gut and then drift through its body. There the fluke takes control of the ant's actions by manipulating its nerves. As evening approaches and the air cools, the infected ant is drawn away from other members of the colony and upward to the top of a blade of grass. Once there, it clamps its mandibles onto the top of the blade and stays there until dawn. Afterward, it goes back to its normal activity at the ant colony. If the host ant were to be subjected to the heat of the direct sun, it would die along with the parasite. Night after night, the ant goes back to the top of the blade of grass until a grazing animal comes along and eats the blade, ingesting the ant along with it, thus putting lancet flukes back inside their host. They leave out their adult leaves inside the animal, reproducing so that the cycle begins again. Now think of it. What can cause the appearance of strategy in nature? By natural selection. This parasite obliviously have no capability to create such a complex strategy, don't even have the necessary knowledge of different living species in its environment and of their behavior. So how was able to develop such a complex strategy, this parasite? This is the question what science cannot answer. Natural selection definitely can't cause this. This is the reason why God believers believe that there must be an intellectual being who created this kind of living species and basically life on Earth. Now let's make it clear what is natural selection exactly, because as I see that's also caused problem during a debate because people doesn't understand exactly what is natural selection. Natural selection can caused by direct or indirect effects. A direct effect is when something directly affects the body. Example, an infection. In those cases, those species gonna be survive whose body genetically built with more resistance against that infection. An indirect effect is when something affects the lifestyle of the animal and not the body. Example, a predator appear. In that case, the faster or maybe the less colorful animal gonna have the chance to survive and mate. So the further generation gonna be colorless or faster than the previous generation. Now we arrived to an interesting point. There was an experiment with guppies. This experiment clearly shows natural selection at work. Female guppies prefer colorful males as mates. However, colorful males are also more likely to be eaten by predators because they are easier to spot. Some parts of the streams where the guppies live have less dangerous predators than others, and in these locations, the males are more colorful. In locations where there are more dangerous predators, males tend to be less colorful. The experiment was repeated on populations in the wild. Guppies from a group with dual-colored males were transferred from an area with dangerous predatory fish to a region with less dangerous predators and left them for about 2 years. This is around 15 guppy generation. In this region, without hungry predators picking off bright fish, sexual selection favored males that stood out. The population had rapidly evolved into one with brightly colored males. This demonstrates that genetic variation within a population provides the raw material for rapid evolution when environmental conditions change. The conclusion is that the body of an animal can change by the effect what caused the natural selection, but nothing more. The way of thinking of the animal stayed the same. The female guppies still looking for the colorful males, but because of the predators, they mostly find the less colorful ones. That is the reason why the less colorfuls can mate and not the colorful. When the danger was little, the chance for a colorful male to mate was increased and the chance for the less colorful males were decreased. The conclusion is that the female's behavior always stay the same. They always looking for the most colorful males. This means that only natural selection cannot be the answer of the diversity of nature. There should be something more what defines the behavior of the living species. Primitive animals, mushrooms, plants do not observe their environment and they do not make strategies and plans how to live their lives in a changed environment. They are simply not capable of that. Natural selection cannot affect the instinct and the strategy of the living species. It affects only the body. Thank you for your attention.